Welcome to the IVF Journey with Dr. Michael Chapman, the podcast for couples who struggle with infertility and want to fulfill their dreams of becoming parents. In this podcast, you'll learn actionable strategies to deal with infertility from Dr. Michael Chapman, or Prof as he's affectionately known. Prof is the co-founder of IVF Australia and is a leading Australian infertility specialist who has helped over 3,000 couples realise their dreams of becoming parents. To access previous episodes packed with ideas, solutions and tips that actually work, head over to Dr. Chapman's IVF podcast on iTunes. You can also ask questions by contacting Dr. Chapman's rooms on 1800 111 483 or by emailing him michael.chapman@ivf.com.au.
That first cry of a baby born after the long journey of IVF remains one of the most beautiful experiences in the world. As an obstetrician and an IVF specialist, I've had the privilege of experiencing this over many thousands of times in my long career, but I still remain moved by each baby's first cry. It signifies the end of a long journey and the beginning of a new life. This is Professor Michael Chapman, co-founder of IVF Australia and host of the IVF Journey podcast. Thanks for tuning in. To access all the previous episodes, head over to my website, www.theivfjourney.com, and select IVF Journey Podcast from the navigation menu. You'll also be able to find the various services that we provide at IVF Australia. Today's podcast, I'm going to address the common questions that I get asked in the clinic. Patients, usually when they first come to see me, they ask questions like, what can I do to help me get pregnant or help us get pregnant? If you look around the general population, there are a lot of unhealthy, unfit individuals who do produce pregnancies, which makes one think all the lifestyle issues that we raise perhaps are not so important. Those lifestyle issues like your weight, smoking, alcohol, drugs, are all things that you hear about or read about on the internet as being significant in preventing people getting pregnant. But the evidence is not great. Certainly, if you look at IVF pregnancy rates, women who are over 100 kilos do have lower success rates, but they still do get pregnant. Men who are overweight are shown to have lower sperm counts, but there are many of them who do still create a pregnancy in their wives, either with IVF or naturally. Other habits like smoking clearly do make a difference. Most importantly, probably cigarette smoking in women is associated with an earlier menopause. In other words, the number of eggs decline quicker if you're a smoker. But lots of women who smoke still get pregnant. So none of these things are black and white. So when I get asked, should I stop smoking? Definitely I say yes. Should I stop drinking? My comment there is everything in moderation. That the occasional glass of wine is not a problem, but if you're a regular 2 glasses of wine or half a bottle a night, I'd certainly say that would be bad for your chances of getting pregnant. In relation to coffee is another area where I'm sure if you're trying to get pregnant, your mother has told you that you drink too much coffee. What's too much? Well, I have some evidence that I've seen that suggests that up to 2 cups a day makes absolutely no difference to fertility. More than that potentially is an issue. So you can have a little bit of coffee if you're an addict. There's no need to give it up altogether. Because trying to get pregnant shouldn't be an ordeal. It should be something that occurs relatively naturally. And even if you do need treatments, I think it's still important to have a normal life as much as possible. In relation to weight, there is quite clearly evidence that for women who are overweight, ovulation, the making of an egg, is impaired. By losing weight, there are a number of studies now have shown that those women who are anovulatory, in other words, not making eggs, do become ovulatory, even with a small loss of weight. Less than 10% weight loss in those particular women can induce ovulation and therefore pregnancy. So in that group, certainly weight loss is important. We go beyond the trying to get pregnant and also think about the pregnancy itself and the effects of all these things that I've mentioned before on the baby that is growing inside you when you do get pregnant. And there is evidence that every one of those that I've mentioned does have an impact on potential damage to the baby. So women who are overweight are more likely to develop diabetes in pregnancy, which has an impact on the baby's growth, in fact, potentially on its long-term chances itself of getting diabetes. Alcohol in excess can certainly result in brain damage to the baby, something called fetal alcohol syndrome. Now, you have to actually be a significant binge drinker, almost an alcoholic, to have that as a problem. But we do worry, even in mild amounts, about alcohol in pregnancy once you're pregnant. Cigarette smoking, definitely a no-no, because again, quite clearly, the placenta doesn't grow as well, it doesn't supply as much food to the baby, babies are smaller, growth restricted, and potentially that will be a lifelong problem. So while I talk about lifestyle factors not being hugely important in interfering with your chances of getting pregnant, they certainly interfere with the chances of having the best possible baby at the end of the day. So in addition to doing the things like losing weight, stopping cigarettes, reducing caffeine intake, reducing alcohol intake, we then have to think about whether there are any things that can add on to increase your chances of getting pregnant when you're having trouble. And if you go on the internet, you'll find thousands of suggestions, most of which involve getting internet access to products that you pay for, mostly of unproven value. In fact, I would go so far as to say virtually all of them have unproven value. On the male side, we have things like Sperm Max, I saw the other day on the internet, supposedly to increase sperm count. There is no evidence whatsoever that any agent improves sperm count in relation to low numbers. The products that supposedly improve female fertility, again, there is no evidence that they are truly worthwhile. There are no scientific trials being done, and anecdotal evidence on all of these things is actually what people are basing their judgment on. The problem with any of these products and any of these statements is that there is a background rate of conception. And if you combine that background rate with taking these medications, they don't acknowledge the background rate. The credit goes to the product itself. So don't believe them and don't waste your money on them. If we do look at things that might make a difference, where there have been scientific studies that are both positive and negative, there's a drug called DHEA, which is a very mild male hormone. It has to be prescribed by a doctor. And certainly some American studies indicate that it may be beneficial in older women in improving egg numbers and quality. CoQ10, which is an enzyme that promotes the energy levels within cells, has also been shown, at least in mice, to improve egg quality. So if you're an old mouse and you take CoQ10, you do get better eggs. Whether that translates into old humans is very debatable. The important things to take in terms of medication when you're trying to get pregnant really boils down to folic acid. Folic acid levels are important in preventing spina bifida in babies. The value is clearly shown, and the rates of spina bifida and something called anencephaly, where the baby is born without a head, have dropped dramatically since folic acid was added to bread in Western countries. But taking extra folate is a good idea. Other vitamins will get sold, again, by pharmaceutical companies saying that you need to have all these vitamins to get your best chance of pregnancy and the best chance of early pregnancy going well. If you have a balanced diet with greens, meat, fish, then you're getting all those vitamins, and everything else really is a waste of time. So I'm a bit of a nihilist, you might have gathered. I think as you look around the community, most couples conceive naturally despite perhaps having habits that aren't totally 100% healthy. So I can't quite see why they make a big difference to the infertile. So, my ending words would be, eat well, don't drink too much, don't smoke, and that prepares you to get pregnant. And I don't think altering that will really make any difference to your chances of conceiving if you're having problems getting pregnant. And don't forget that you can access all the previous episodes by going to our website, www.theivfjourney.com, and select IVF Journey Podcast from the navigation menu.
Thank you for listening to the IVF Journey with Dr. Michael Chapman, the podcast which helps couples negotiate their way through the IVF journey, all the way to parenthood. You can also ask questions by contacting Dr. Chapman's rooms on 1800 111 483 or by emailing him michael.chapman@ivf.com.au.